Hello, my name is Oranjoman. Today we will be reviewing the AMX 65T. The AMX 65T has 2000 and...
No. Do you think watching a video of some guy showing you a bunch of numbers of a tank is really going to teach you how to play that vehicle? It just doesn't happen. You don't think about your exact armor penetration and your exact mobility in order to get to a position to react to a specific target that's going to be right in front of you. Every single battle is slightly different in each and every single way, from the players to the enemy tanks that you're going to be fighting. This video is here to show you exactly what type of mentality that you need to have in order to put a French heavy tank in the best situation possible to get the best results that you can get in every single fight that you play. This video will teach you how it feels to play French heavy tanks. My name is Oranjoman, and let's get started with the first French heavy tank, the BDR G1, starting at tier 5. Now, the first thing you're going to see is, hey, it's a heavy tank. Let me play it like one. And I don't think you should. Let's try side scraping. Yeah, that didn't work out really well. What about playing hull down? Maybe it has a good turret. Ooh, no, it does not. You see, with all French heavy tanks, there's one common rule. Do not rely on the armor. Even though these tanks are categorized as heavy tanks, that is not their primary focus to be in the front lines, brawling it out with enemy heavy tanks. Your entire focus when playing French heavy tanks should be around your teammates, especially at the start of the game. You don't have enough armor, and you don't have enough HP to really be bleeding and trying to trade with enemy heavy tanks. Your entire playstyle is surrounded by the idea that you want to be poking corners at a medium distance. You don't want to be in the front lines whatsoever, and you want to make sure that you're always ready to expose yourself for short periods of time, damage a target, and then return back to cover. Doing this can make sure that you maintain your HP for a longer period of time, and make sure that your team has a better advantage of being able to take better positions, and you can even get close to the enemy as the battle progresses. You'll also see this type of gameplay in the Tier 6 ARL 44 and the Tier 7 AMX 45. But those two higher vehicles have a slight twist to their gameplay. At Tier 6, you have the option to start playing with two different types of guns that offer a different type of playstyle. Remember, you're still trying to focus on not exposing yourself to the front lines or trying to use your armor in a way that you'll be stuck brawling with enemy heavy tanks. But the first gun, the 105mm on the ARL 44, gives you an ability to be able to trade shots when you're in a group of teammates. You're still trying to play at a medium distance, but this gun offers you to hit them hard and be able to return to cover at a lot sooner time. The only negative is that it does not contain enough DPM for you to shoot your way out of a problem. So if you're caught by yourself or stuck too far in the front lines, the enemies will expose you for it and you will die for it. It's very hard to take risks with this gun, but you can definitely get a lot of good results depending on how skilled of a player and how comfortable you are with taking these types of risky plays. Now, the 90mm on the ARL 44 offers a more passive playstyle. A playstyle where you're still trying to focus on a medium distance when you're engaging your enemies, but you can be a little bit further back at different times. This playstyle gives you less DPM, and it doesn't allow you to be able to hit enemies that hard, but you can consistently hit enemies, and depending on the pace of the game or the pace of your own playstyle, can mean that you can stay in the game for a significantly longer period of time without taking too many risks. You can also support your teammates from a slightly longer distance, but you still can't snipe. The tanks, neither of these guns, will offer the ability for you to snipe. You have to be careful with how you pace yourself, because even at a far back area, you cannot cover yourself from flanking attacks. It just doesn't have the DPM to shoot your way out of a fight. These same rules apply to the Tier 7 AMX M4 45. You still get the option of both of the guns, so you can play with whatever gun you feel most comfortable with, and whichever gun you want to be able to increase your playstyle with. But you need to take in mind that you're going to start seeing higher tier opponents, so you need to be playing a little bit more reserved, especially with the 105mm gun. You want to be able to rotate depending on where your team is rotating to. You don't want to be stuck in a flank by yourself, and you want to make sure that you're constantly keeping an eye on your teammates as much as you are on the enemy team. When you finish grinding the Tier 7, you're going to be given two different options. an autoloader line, and a single-shot armor-based heavy tank line. Now, let's say you choose the AMX 65T, which is the Tier 8 French heavy tank going down the armor-based line. A common misconception is, as soon as people see that this is an armor-based line, they think that they can immediately throw out all they've learned with the Tier 5 through 7 and just start playing it like a heavy tank.
Ah yes, I am a traditional heavy, lots of strong armor, and a powerful gun. Wait a second. Oh mon dieu, sacre bleu.
This is not the case. This tank is still not a heavy tank. You can't play it like one. For example, let's try playing this tank hull down. That's definitely not gonna work. What about trying to snipe from a distance? I mean, it has a long gun, right? So it must be good at a range. Yeah, no. You no longer have the option of playing with two different guns, but the AMX 65T is probably one of the best Tier 8 French heavy tanks in the game. Yes, I said it, and the reason I say it because if you play the tank with poking out and exposing yourself as little as possible at a medium range, the gun works perfectly. Don't throw away everything you've learned at the lower tiers. Apply it to these games. If you enjoyed the 65T, the Lorraine 50T has an extremely similar playstyle that's one tier higher. Let's start getting to the big boys. The M4 49 Liberté, the M4 51, and the M4 54. These are the first French heavy tanks that have reliable frontal hull armor, but there's a catch to it. These tanks all have a similarly shaped frontal hull. There's a rectangle on either side of the front that is a massive weak spot when you're trying to side scrape. So don't side scrape with these tanks. You want to push yourself into positions that have corners where you can angle away your weak spots and be able to use the actual corners themselves to be able to bounce shots. Now, for the lower tier premiums, this won't work all the time, especially against tier 10s. But with the higher tier vehicles, you can definitely use this tactic to make sure that you keep your hull safe without getting penned. Speaking of the higher tier vehicles, let's talk more about the M451 and the M454. You always want to be using the big gun on these tanks, even though that we're introduced back with the small gun. The big gun focuses on Rule 2. Make sure to rely on your DPM. These guns have very high alpha damage and very high DPM. So, because of this, you want to make sure that you're constantly in the fight, whether that be from a small distance of medium range or getting in close. You have massive cupolas, so you can't be staying still for too long. Your enemy will exploit that. Making sure that you're able to put shots out though as much as possible and rotate when needed be is the most important thing and the focus of this playstyle. But you can't be too aggressive without teammates. These tanks cannot hold off in the front lines for way too long. So you want to make sure that you're pacing yourself well to put yourself in a position where you're dealing damage but you're not too far into enemy territory. Play in this middle ring where you can put out shots without getting exploited for. But let's say you don't care about armor at all, and you want to go fast. I'm talking real fast. Then the FCM 50T is your pick of French heavy tanks. This is a heavy tank with a medium tank soul. You have medium tank DPM with medium tank mobility, but heavy tank HP, meaning that you can easily win brawls against enemy medium tanks in close range combat, or you can play passively with the accuracy of a medium tank's gun. This tank is great for wolf packing and making sure that you take positions away from enemy medium tanks. Your entire focus is to make sure that you're sticking with your group. Don't be afraid to play passive in this vehicle when need be, but when you see an opportunity that your teammates are pushing, you should take it with them. Being able to put the pressure on the enemy and put the enemy falling back while you're farming them as much as possible is the main focus of this tank. Let's slow it down a bit. Let's talk about what French heavy tanks have been truly known for since they've been first added to the game. They're autoloaders. But before we go into autoloaders, let's talk about Rule 3 first. Take your time. With all of the tanks that we previously talked about, taking your time is extremely important, but especially with French autoloaders. You cannot be exposing yourself for too long of a period of time, and you want to make sure that you pick the right targets to fight when you are exposing yourself. The best way of explaining what I'm talking about here is with the Somua SM. Due to the lack of mobility and lack of accuracy, you're forced to play close range. But if you're the first one to poke a corner, especially against enemy heavy tanks, you'll immediately be taken out due to your lack of armor. The best thing you can do with these tanks is to make sure that you're playing behind your teammates. You should not be the first one poking the corner. Wait either till your teammates overpoke on the enemy or your enemy overpokes on you. Wait till their guns fire, and once that happens, take the time to dump all your shells out. This means that you can hold your HP and assess the situation that you're in while you're reloading, and make sure that you're keeping your teammates alive because you're putting out more damage than the enemy is doing to you. Don't get too used to this gameplay because most French autoloaders have very quick mobility, such as the AMX 5100. The AMX 5100 is one of the only vehicles that you're going to be seeing playing consistently against medium tanks due to its massive amount of mobility. But you have to be careful with this because it can easily get you into trouble. Before you go flying in the wind with the 5100, you want to take in mind that you can get yourself into trouble very, very quickly. Let's pause right here. You've already shot 2 shots. This T-34-3 is completely exposing himself. He's just begging, please, please, unload the rest of your magazine into my upper plate. Oh, I would love if you just dumped your entire clip. But you have to be careful. The 5100 is massive, and it doesn't have any armor whatsoever. So this tank can easily be overwhelmed once your 6 shots are up. Exposing yourself for too long of a period of time means that you will eventually be pushed once the enemy realizes that your clip is empty. Even if you have teammates, there's only so much that they can do if you overpush way too much. This is a bad example of trying to pace yourself. What you want to do with the 5100, especially when you're playing in medium tank positions, is cleanup work. This tank excels at cleaning up enemy tanks. Maintaining your HP for as long as possible is extremely important. Being able to trade with enemies throughout the entire battle is your main focus with this tank. But take in mind, you're big with no armor. Artie's going to be looking at you the entire time, so make sure that you keep one eye always looking at the skies. This playstyle carries directly over to the Tier 9 and Tier 10 AMX 50-120 and the AMX 50B. Whenever you're starting off with these vehicles, you have better gun accuracy, so you can take your time and put yourself in a position at a longer distance. Whenever the enemy is making a mistake, this is the best time to dump your entire clip at a long distance range. You don't need to rush anything, and you can use your reloads to be able to assess where the enemy is and where the teammates are planning on going. If you see your team is ready to begin a push, this is the time to rotate when you're still reloading. You don't have the longest reload in the world, but you have enough time to take a few seconds to be able to see where your teammates are going. When your team does begin a push, you need to make sure that you position yourself in areas that when you are going on to reload, you have cover between you and the enemy. This doesn't mean that you need to fully run away, but this also doesn't mean that you should be exposing yourself to the enemy at all times. Remember, these tanks are best at cleaning up, so once the enemy is fired, dump your clip, and when your enemy's ready to fire again, that's when you hide behind cover. If you take all of these things into account, you can be able to put out so much damage that your enemy will not be able to recover. But it's all about timing. I can't say it more than 1,000 times. Don't rush into situations. Take your time. If you're able to pace yourself, if you're able to rely on your gun, and if you're able to not put too much onto your armor, then you'll truly understand how it feels to play French heavy tanks. Thank you so much for watching this video. It took me and Ixta a lot of time to get this finally out to you, but I'm so happy that we did. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And if you want to see more content like this, make sure to tell me which type of tech tree you want to see it from. Also, I'm going to be 3-marking more French heavy tanks on my stream, so make sure to stop by and check it out. Luckily, we were able to cover every single French heavy tank, because there's not any other French heavy tank that we're missing, right? I hope you have a wonderful day and stay happy, everybody.